Welcome once again. Third time's a charm with Jay Stevens, man. I got to have Jay around. We haven't done a show in a while, so I figured, why not get three out of here? Guys, Ohio State football with Scarlet and Gray right here on YouTube. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. It helps the channel grow. We appreciate you. We're trying to get to 5,000 subscribers before the season, so please help us out. God bless you guys. Appreciate all the love you give us. Anyway, we are sorry we have not been putting out much content lately. We are some busy mofos. Anyway, my buddy Jay here from the Locked On Buckeyes podcast, the Jay Stevens podcast every Monday. Man, he's a hardworking dude. I don't even want to do one podcast. You're just doing like 2, 3, 4, 5. Anyway, so Jay, this is a conversation about how is NIL, the new end of the wild, wild west of the NIL, impacting your view on college football? Because you like me, man. We got, it's a little bit of a heartstring attachment to college football, right? It's emotional, it's passionate, it's not really money driven. It's more just what we love, the passion of the kids who play college football. We used to love following recruits from freshman year of high school all the way to senior year of college and see where they go to the pros. Like, yeah, they're making that bag now. Good for them. Jay, how has this impacted your love with college football?
It's impacted it a lot. My love for the sport has been one where I'll tell you now, it's kind of part of the reason why I love Ohio State so much. I got into college football early 2000s. Ohio State's local Midwestern school. I knew I was not going to be in Indiana. I'm from Indiana, guys, so I was not going to be an IU fan, a Purdue fan. Purdue just got off a run where they had Drew Brees going to the Rose Bowl, and then they had a guy actually from my high school that I eventually went to, wasn't there at this time, that was actually at Purdue. So I was like, okay, like Purdue's a better football school. Indiana sucks. Notre Dame's way up
How do you
north.
really feel?
I know. Notre Dame's way up north in South Bend, 2.5 hours away from where I lived. And I was like, Notre Dame's different. They've always been different. And so I was like, what school am I going to gravitate towards? Illinois, sorry. Northwestern, sorry. The schools up in the northern state from where I live, not saying the name of those schools, but sorry. But it was Ohio State. Ohio State wins the Natty in 2002. I loved the concept of the BCS. You may say, Jay, the BCS was a bad system. I don't care what you think about it. I loved the concept of the BCS. You play all your regular season games, conference championship game if you had it at that time. Then all of a sudden, due to these computers compiling all these polls, we are going to put together a championship game. The top two teams playing the champ. I loved that. And then the BCS changed. Randolph had more games, but it was still the top two teams play in the national championship game. My love for the sport kind of changed a little bit when you instituted the college football playoff. And I was like, this just doesn't seem the same. This doesn't seem the same the way that it was when I first started loving the sport. I don't know if this is the best route for the sport. Money is dictating things. And then now, college football playoff expansion hasn't changed it for me because I kind of expected it. But when I read stuff, Corey, and NIL is saying, well, so-and-so going to Miami, he's getting $800,000 a year to play basketball. I saw the kid play a lot of basketball in high school. $400,000 a year from one company, that doesn't sit. That just it's weird. It's different. I'm not saying, like, if you want to pay him that money, great, whatever. Like, that's your business. I don't think it's wise for these businesses to do this, but it just seems weird. And then when you add in $9.5 million, but the kid left on the table $11 million. Then I hear a kid is committing to a school somewhere else where his dad, someone's saying, well, NIL is what's motivating changing the decision to not commit to one school to go to another school. It doesn't sit well with me. It just seems like the college football I grew up on and that I loved, and I've loved even in my adult years, it's not going to be the same, dictated by money. And I surely hope this is just something that's just a small dot on the timeline of college football. NIL is not going away, but at some point, I wonder if we're going to see more realistic deals being thrown out there for these youngsters by
Maybe
these
more
companies.
regulation. Yeah.
A little bit more regulation, rules that are not being enforced that should be enforced. That a little bit. I do think at some point down the road, within the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see more of the regulation of rules and saying, well, we guys kind of let you do what you wanted in the beginning. We got to kind of corral this thing a little bit to make it better for everybody involved.
Yeah, I agree. I used to love recruiting, love following it because it made the game more fun for me. I remember the first recruit I ever followed was Jalen Marshall. and you get to follow him in Ohio. He's a quarterback in Ohio, scat back, wildcat quarterback. You knew he's going to be more of in an urban system. He was going to be more of what was that role called, the Percy Harvin role, that H back, yeah, the H back, and you knew that he could be great in that because of what he could do. Obviously ended up being a great player for Ohio State, but. And that part of it made it fun for me.
Yeah.
Like, man, you get to follow these kids from being kids to being grown adults, being young men. Then you get to go see them in the NFL and make their bag, and it was just so exciting for them.
Yeah.
And now, and it used to be like when you always knew underground money was involved. You always knew that. We're not naive to the point, but I mean, you always knew like the Georges of the world were just like shelling out money, like it was unreal. But you still had that sense of they chose my school that I like because they want to be a part of the school that I love, and it hits you in your heartstrings a little bit. As opposed to the NFL, I'm a Packers fan. I only came to Green Bay because they offered him $30 million guaranteed. I mean, it's like it's like, who cares? He's not there to be a Green Bay Packer. He's there because he's and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just it doesn't get you emotionally. It's just like, great, please help my team win. Then, oh, you didn't help my team win. Then I don't really care about you. If you come to Ohio State, you came because you chose to be there. I'm more happy to have more slack on it. He didn't play as well. I don't care. That kid's awesome. He works hard. He doesn't get paid. Whatever. Don't go bearing down on him. I hate when fans go crazy critical on these kids sometimes. But nowadays, when you're seeing anywhere from 8 to 10 million figures thrown around for players that never touched the field, it's almost like, okay, so he chose my school. He left, like you said, 11 million on the table to come to my school for 9 million. It's like, oh, boo-hoo, It's just like, well, thank you for showing us the love, that part of the passion, that pageantry and passion of the game is dying for me a little bit. And I don't follow recruiting hardly at all anymore. I mean, I'm going to bring on Dylan Freeman here to talk about it because I don't want to follow it. I want him to. He likes to follow it. I'm like, you just go ahead, Dylan. Tell everybody what's going on, because I'm like, I don't care. They're going to go where the money's good. It's like you're seeing these kids pop up out of nowhere. Like Miami's having a great offensive line class. We know why, and that's fine. They're playing with the system they're given, and they know the importance of the position. Cristobal being the coach there, obviously being a former offensive line coach, I get it, but it just is like, it's not a battle of you come to my school, we'll give you these opportunities, you did the pageantry, the prestige, the history of my school. Now it's like, look, I can get you 8 million. I mean, that to me is just taking away from the sport for me. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't make money. I'm not saying 18-year-old kids, legal adults shouldn't make money off their name, image, and likeness. It's just, I'm telling you how it's impacting the fans, and I wonder how it's going to impact future generations who, Jay, didn't grow up like you and me, loving the sport, loving the school of Ohio State. I mean, what do you think future generations are going to think when this is becoming the new norm?
They'll probably think the way that former players do about what's going on now. I recently, about a year ago now, I interviewed a player who played at the University of Georgia, was a tight end. He was an All-American, Walter Camp All-American in 1988. And I asked him about the transfer portal. I didn't ask him about NIL. NIL was legal at that time, but it wasn't kind of the way that it is now a year later, how we're seeing things really ramp up really quickly. And I asked him about the transfer portal. He's like, I never once thought at any point in time to transfer. I thought, this is what he said, I thought I get to Georgia, I play football, I put my time in, I work. If I go to the NFL, great, but I never thought through the tough times, the really, really hard times, the two-a-day practices, whatever it is, I never once thought to transfer. Former players are still kind of weird about the transfer portal, and I think that that's how people are going to think, like we will think in 20 years. Things are just weird. The future generations, I think they'll love the sport. I do think they'll love the sport because they're growing up in a social media age, and they're gravitating towards what LeBron James is doing on social media, or what Steph Curry is doing, or literally what Steph Curry's wife is doing with her businesses. Like, they're gravitated towards those things, where you and I are simply like, I like this player because he scored the game-winning basket in a basketball game. I like Maurice Claret because he made a phenomenal play in the national championship game. We like the stuff on the field, on the court. Kids nowadays are growing up with literally their phones, and they're like, well, Instagram says this. Twitter says this. TikTok says this. Well, this YouTuber said this about so and so, and that's how they're growing up. So they're going to gravitate towards those players, literally that are having YouTube pages. Well, wherever he goes, I'm gonna follow. Well, it's an Ohio kid. He committed to Michigan. Oh, I like that. Well, then he transfers from Michigan, goes to Ohio State. Well, I'll just follow him wherever he goes. I think they'll follow the journey of the athlete wherever they go, and I think their fandom might be tied more into the player, not the team. And Corey, to me, that's weird for college football because for decades we celebrated amazing players, but our love is for Ohio State. Players that are at Ohio State, that's where our love is. Not, I follow CJ Stroud wherever he goes. I am his number one fan. No, it's mainly been all about the team. But we could see it be more about the player. And to me, that's kind of weird because that's not what college football has been, not just in my lifetime. Going back into the early 1900s when college football really got popular, even the 20s when they started the Heisman, it was about the team. It might be about the player here really, really soon for many fans that are just now falling in love with the sport.
Yeah, these players are building their brands at such an early age, man. Going into their sophomore, junior year of high school now with the money situation, what it is. I mean, you know darn well there's people talking to them, even if it's illegal, talking to these kids what they can get them by the time they get to college. You know, if you go here, I'll get you $9 million or whatever. You obviously you're worth that. Okay, fine. I'm a capitalist. Fine, you know, it is what it is. You know, so it's just how the market works right now. You allow these kids to make money, they're going to find ways, and people are going to find a way to get them that money. I mean, that's just a fact. Um, but again, it's just that's the normal reaction. I think what you said is so dead on. I mean, it's almost like the fantasy football with the NFL thing. I was like, well, who's on my team? I don't care about the Panthers. I care about what Christian McCaffrey's doing. You know. And it's almost like kids growing up. I wonder if they're going to come to a point where they're like, I'm not an Ohio State fan, but I love the running back they got. Oh, he's transferring. Oh, okay. Well, now I'm an Oregon fan. You know, now I agree, and it's because their brand is so big. It could become not. I wouldn't say bigger than the university, obviously, but it's big enough to attract their own fan base. And I mean, what do we do when Ohio State kids go to the NFL? We're happy they're going. We're cheering them on as they get drafted, not just because of who they are, but because they're sorry, I'm moving my computer around because they're going to they went to our school. I mean, that's where the love begins, right? And the love you showed out of the school that we love, we are having that connection as fans to these players. And nowadays, it's more like, you know, just where I'm going, where the money's going. So we don't have that connection as much anymore. I'm not gonna say it's completely gone because I think I can't speak for everybody on that, but for me, it's kind of like, well, you know, Ryan Day said it out loud. We're going to need $13 million in NIL money to keep a roster intact that'll challenge for the national title. And it's going to be more than that within 5 years easily. It's going to be $100 million within 5 years because nothing ever stays at a certain level. It just goes up and up. Charles Barkley and former great NBA greats are saying, man, I wish I had these contracts that these guys are getting today. It's unreal. I mean, I think Larry Bird was like the first player ever to make $1 million in the NBA. In a contract. I mean, Magic Johnson's first, I think, year was like what, $700,000 or something like that. And now these guys who are fairly average players as compared to Bird and Magic are making $250 million contracts, fully guaranteed. So it's there's no way it just goes nothing but up from here. And Zach Smith says it all the time. NCAA had a chance to regulate this from the beginning and say, look, we're going to let kids make money because they should, but we're going to make sure it stays at a level that's acceptable. Nope. Wild, Wild West. Here we go. And Texas was one of the first schools I seen. They were putting together a $25-30 million fund from the boosters saying this is what we need to make sure these kids get it if you want to get this program back on track. Now it literally is. I mean, it's blown the doors open. It literally is just that to keep the program going and how much the boosters can give you. So I don't know. That to me just takes away the pageantry and the love of college football away from me from a little bit. And I'm hoping it doesn't keep deteriorating over time.
I hope not too. I know that when it came to players, like I know many people, like I'm going to use a basketball connection. Many Ohio State fans like Mike Conley because he played at Ohio State. They wish Greg Oden didn't get injured. He played at Ohio State. Many people, your kind of fondness or enjoyment whenever Quinn Ewers plays football, it might not be there. He's not at Ohio State. Like I know Corey and I keep saying like NIL's changing things, but it is. And many of you watching, you're kind of like us. I like Ohio State. It's where my fandom has been the entire time. A player comes in, great. A player leaves. I may still like. I'm pretty sure there'll be Buckeye fans that'll root for Jack Mel III when he gets on the field at Florida at some point in time because he played at Ohio State. Buckeye fans still claim Joe Burrow because he was at Ohio State. Like I get his Ohio.
Graduated.
Yeah, I mean he graduated as well. It's because of many of you where he started, where he was at. It's weird, man. It's really, and I'll tell you this. You know me, I live in Indiana. I watch high school basketball like crazy. When guys leave Indiana, the state of Indiana, to go to a prep school, I don't care if it's Northwest Indiana up near Gary, La Lemire, where Jaron Jackson Jr. went, or if it's another kid, if it's a kid named Mike Saunders who left after his freshman year of high school, played under a Hall of Fame coach in high school to go to a prep school. When they leave that, it feels weird. I don't care if they're still in Indiana or not. It just literally feels weird. No, I will still follow that player, but it's like you left what the state of Indiana has and is made so special. But why? Like, does it make sense? To a lot of people, no. Sometimes it does. But you fall in love with a local, especially maybe being in the Midwest, you fall in love with what's there, and you're like, well, you're there. Like, I love it. NIL's changed the game. And
100%.
I really hope it's a short-term thing. And the NCAA flopped. Now, it's going to be interesting, Corey. Whenever somebody else decides to govern college football, I'd probably say 5 years. I think it could be easily 20 years because these people in charge are never on the same page. But whenever they get a governing body to decide and govern college football, are their rules different than college basketball and the other sports that are under the NCAA? Because we say NIL could be regulated under the NCAA at some point. It probably won't be. Well, college football could be regulated, have certain rules for NIL, and then college basketball and the other sports could have different rules for NIL, and the rules be completely different. Where let's say a school has 30 sports, 29 sports have one rule for NIL, and then football has their own. Imagine how crazy the compliance office at these schools will be while trying to filter in. Well, is that a football player, or does he play, or is he a wrestler? Well, he has a build of his body is built to do both. Which one is it? Well, he does wrestling. Well, okay, well, these are these set of rules. And then what he's currently doing is not following those rules. Well, it has to change drastically. We could easily be looking at a college sports landscape where football has one set of NIL rules, the other sports have another, and that's another can of worms.
It's never going to end. It's just the worms are going to keep coming out. This is never going to end. Yeah, I'm with you, man. Tell them where they can find you, brother.
You guys can follow me on Twitter at jsteven07. Also, check out Locked on Buckeyes every Monday through Friday, covering mainly right now, it's only Ohio State football. We cover basketball as well, but literally, you guys only care about football right now and most of the year. So that's what we'll talk about. Then every Monday, check out the Jay Stevens podcast. We'll have a lot of fun. Not Ohio State centered, but when things like Stephen A and Kyrie get into it, I might have a thing or two to say about that conversation.
Absolutely. I actually have been trying to get Johnny to develop a Big Ten podcast so we can talk about other things besides Ohio State all the time, because I do love Ohio State, but, we have opinions on everything. So
yeah.
And we all watched a lot of different sports. So anyway, in football, we have these lull periods, man. It's like wow, what's going on with Ohio State? But that's why I think we're talking about NIL. We're talking about USC and things like that a little bit in other shows, because it's like it comes to Ohio State, it impacts Ohio State, but it's the world is much smaller than it used to be. So everything in the world can impact Ohio State in this instance. So guys, leave a comment. What has it done to your fanhood? Okay, NIL, is it deteriorating a little bit? Do you not care? I want to know what you guys say in the comments section. As always, guys, subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. Like the video; it helps us grow. We want to get to 5,000 subscribers before the season. So we appreciate you guys. Always check out Jay, Locked On Buckeyes, and the Jay Stevens podcast as he brought it up. Go to Spotify; I'm sure you can find him there. Any other your streaming choices for that matter. I choose Spotify for myself. I'm not paying me anything, but that's what I choose. Guys, appreciate you all as always. Jay, appreciate you as always, guys. Goodbye. God bless. And go Bucks.